Good morning. I'm Kenneth Burns, president of the New Jersey Society of Professional Journalists. We thank everyone from across the sea, over in London, and around the world, really, as well as here in New Jersey and across the country, for logging on to our event as we discuss the injustice, quite frankly, taking place in Russia with New Jersey born journalist Evan Gershkovich. We're going to start the program in a moment, but first, a little bit about the New Jersey Society of Professional Journalists. Not only do we boost journalism here in the Garden State, where we are underserved by two major markets, and we have a very active journalism community between our hyperlocal websites, our regional news network, News 12, as well as NJ-PBS and NJ Spotlight. But we also put on programming like this to raise awareness about journalism, journalists in trouble. We also have an annual awards program. The contest just began, and news flash, early bird fees are through the end of the month. We'll also have the award ceremony later this year. You can learn more about New Jersey Society of Professional Journalists by going to our website, NJ-SPJ.org. Now, without further ado, I'm going to turn things over to our moderator, Jesse Gomez, who's a reporter with Chalkbeat Newark.
Hi, good morning, and thanks so much for that, Ken. Again, and thanks to all our viewers for joining us in this very important conversation. Again, my name is Jesse Gomez. I'm a reporter with Chalkbeat Newark, covering education in the city. Today, we're going to take some time to learn about Evan Gershkovich as we near the one-year anniversary of his detention in a Russian prison in his pending case. We'll also talk about the broader implications of his arrest on press freedom and just learn more about Evan's time growing up in New Jersey. So here to talk with us today is Paul Beckett. He's the assistant editor over at the Wall Street Journal, and Mike Van Italy, a close friend of Evan's. Welcome, gentlemen. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
Awesome. So we'll just thanks. Awesome. Well, we'll just get right into it. There's a lot of ground to cover here. Paul, let's start talking about Evan's case. Give us kind of the latest of what's going on and tell us how he's doing.
Evan is holding up remarkably well. He's a resilient young man. He's 32 years old. He's familiar with Russia and its environs. He grew up in a family of Soviet emigres. So he speaks Russian. He went to Russia from the US to pursue his career there. And he was out reporting for the Wall Street Journal and only for the Wall Street Journal when he was grabbed by the Federal Security Services almost a year ago. So since then, he's been in the notorious Lefortovo prison in the middle of Moscow. It's known for its determination to isolate and disorient its inmates. But we do get to see Evan once a week or so through lawyers that we send in, and he works very hard at staying okay. He exercises, he writes letters, and we're very grateful for the fact that he has maintained his equilibrium all this time.
Yeah, absolutely. And those conditions are very harsh. And we'll get to those conditions and really kind of the implications again on what his arrest means on press freedom. But can you tell us a little bit about the latest in this case? I know he recently had a hearing and there's been somewhat of a development there. Can you share with our viewers what's new?
What's happened over the last year is a series of pretrial detentions that the Russian authorities have sought from a Moscow court, and it's been no surprise to us that they have all been granted and all of our appeals have been rejected. So they either last for 2 months or 3 months. The most recent was an appeal that most recent decision was about an appeal that we had filed against his latest 2-month pretrial detention. That will take him to March 30th now. So he will be in detention at least till then. And that was what you saw very recently when our appeal was turned down. After that, it's very hard to tell what happens. The system is so opaque that it's tough to predict, but we assume at some point he will face charges or face this one false charge that has been leveled against him for espionage, which again, we and the US government vehemently deny.
Yeah, absolutely. And now, like you mentioned, Evan's holding up, it seems to be like he's, coping through this very well. Mike, I know that there is limited communication with Evan, but you still have some communication. So can you talk about how you've been communicating with Evan and what he's told you?
Yeah, thanks, Jesse. I'm able to communicate with Evan through letters, and anyone's able to send an email, which will be translated and printed out and mailed to him. And it's an amazing and great service. We're very grateful to his Russia-based and Europe-based and bilingual speaking friends who have provided that service through the free Gershkovich at gmail.com email account. So sort of like Paul said, I mean, what I'll say about his letters is that his voice and his persona comes through 100%. I feel like I'm talking to the Evan that I've known since I was a child, which feels very heartening to me. Also feels very heartening when I see, images from his court appearances where he's cracking a smile, he's holding his head high. But we know that conditions are very tough for him. He has to stay locked up in a pen 23 hours a day, and it's been almost a year now. And that's a really long time. I think back over my past year, and obviously I've been thinking about him a lot, but there have been plenty of moments where I've been totally carefree. I've been able to go on vacation and that sort of thing. And so really hits home, what a tough thing he's going through, and what an injustice it is that he's being locked up.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, again, I think that the conditions here where he's at and what he's dealing with, I think is something that sometimes we often don't think about in the larger scheme of, press freedom. But Paul, let's talk about how the US government has intervened and tried to secure Evan's release. What have they done so far, and kind of what are the steps they're taking to, get Evan home?
Well, the government has been responsive to our requests for help, and ultimately this will be solved by a government-to-government negotiation, either between the US and Russia, but maybe some other allies that could be helpful. So the US government in December said it had made an offer for Evan and for Paul Whelan, of course, who's been there about 5 years now, on a similar charge that the US has said is he's being unlawfully detained. So the US government made this offer. The Russians rejected it. We don't have much visibility into what has happened since, but we assume that they're still working on it. And there have been a couple of interviews with President Putin in which he indicated willingness to solve this. So a lot of that obviously happens behind closed doors. It's classified. We just hope very much that an agreement can be reached. He can be brought back as soon as possible. And, we're just really relying on President Biden's promise to Evan's family that Evan will come home.
Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like there's just a lot of work to be done, and still a lot of conversations to be had, even with both governments too. But now let's talk about just the larger implications, like we were mentioning before, of his arrest on press freedom. Obviously, as a journalist myself, this is something that I can relate to, and I can imagine the conditions he's in. So, Paul, what does Evan's arrest mean, again, for press freedom? I know we've already seen another American reporter detained by Russia on the same charge of failing to report as a foreign agent. So, again, what does this mean for press freedom, Paul?
I think it's a direct attack on one of the fundamental pillars that we all rely on to do our jobs. And it can seem like it's a long way away, and the Journal is lucky to have a broad network of foreign correspondents, but a lot of news organizations don't. I think the thing that's worth remembering is that really an attack on one press freedom is an attack on all of our press freedom. And if we were denied what evidence is being denied, you'd see how dreadful the impact would be on our journalism. And you've seen Putin achieve two goals here, really. One is to gain leverage over the United States, using a journalist as a hostage, in effect. And he has continued to do that. Alsu Kurmasheva is a American-Russian reporter for Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty, who was detained in October and has just gone past her 100 days. So this is an exercise in hostage taking in effect. The second impact is that really every American, I think, who was reporting in Russia left for very understandable reasons. It's a very dangerous place to do business. So, you know, at a time when Russia is very much in the public eye, has been for several years, you know that Russia is having an impact on the future direction of the United States, then we are all being denied the flow of trustworthy information that lots of people rely on to stay informed and to make smart decisions about America's future. So it's, you know, you can look at it as in some ways an isolated incident. It is not isolated. There have been other incidents. I fear there will be more incidents going forward. And I think we take the attitude, if you don't stand up and shout about this one, what will you stand up and shout about? At what point will the assault on press freedom become sufficient to act? And we think that time has already passed.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also, you know, if, like you were mentioning, if you don't stand up and talk about this or bring awareness to this, you know, nothing's going to change. You mentioned that there was no more reporters in Russia. Is there anyone currently there? Are there any outlets that you know of that may be there reporting on?
There are still some outlets who operate there. I don't think, as far as I know, there aren't any Americans who, you know, working for those outlets. So you have these diaspora bureaus now, where the reporters who were in Russia, and they still cover Russia, but we all know as journalists the difference between being on the ground and operating from Berlin, Warsaw, Tbilisi, Dubai. You know, the journalists have been scattered, and they still do an admirable job. It's not to take away from anything that they do. They would all far rather be in Russia as well. But I think you have seen it become much more difficult. I think that's stemmed the flow of information we're getting about Russia. And I do think the reporters who are still in Moscow, from what we understand talking to them, they feel the chilling effect as well. They're not, even though they're there, they're not going to be as expansive as they otherwise would like to be to get us the story.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know you folks are communicating, both of you are communicating with Evan, you know, minimally, but, you know, let's talk about kind of, you know, has he talked about his work? Has he talked about he's eager to get back to work? Is he just, you know, excited to, you know, go back home? What's kind of the sentiment there?
Mike may know.
Well,
Mike, do you have any insights there?
I know that, well, I've known Evan since he was a kid, and through many phases of life, and in high school, in college, and after college. And I'll say that he was sort of born to be a journalist. He is incredibly effective at making connections with people. He's very interested in people and drawing them out. And he's a brilliant writer. And as a American growing up to Russian emigre parents and speaking fluent Russian, he was sort of born to cover the story of Russia to an American or global audience, a Western audience, and sort of translate what's going on the ground there, and how you know, Russians are feeling to the world. And it's a huge loss that he's not able to cover what he should be able to cover. And I know that besides just not having his freedom, I know that he is very frustrated by not being able to work, because I remember when he got this job, he was thrilled. It's really a dream job for him. And so, yes, that's sort of a double loss for him and for everyone.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I've seen past work, and it's very insightful. He's very deep and very methodical about his work as well. And I think that speaks a lot to his own personality. So another question for you, Mike, just so we get to know, Evan a little bit more. He's a New Jersey native. Tell us a little bit about his personality and who he is, really.
Yeah, so Evan grew up in Princeton, New Jersey. We've known each other since we were 8 years old, playing soccer. on the same team. We went to Princeton High School together. We used to take big bike trips across the state down to the Jersey Shore. Evan won the New Jersey State Championship in 2009, I believe, our senior year. And he's incredibly fun to be around. It's hard to, I think you hear that from so many different people who know him. He's just a really special guy who makes friends instantly, and loves adventure, loves to explore and meet new people. And like I sort of alluded to, I think that's sort of his core, his driving interest is just in people and their experiences, and sort of drawing them out. And so, you know, he loves to talk, loves to chat and banter, and he's very funny. And so he's always been like that, you know, as a kid and in high school and afterwards. Yeah, we all miss him.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny that you mentioned that he's funny, because I like Paul was mentioning earlier, in one of his photos where he's, you know, in court, we see him smiling. He's like grinning. So, you know, although he's going through, you know, these terrible conditions, and he's obviously in a very oppressed place, he seems like he's in good spirits. Mike, have you talked to his parents at all? What have they said? How are they feeling?
Yeah, I think I've spoken to his parents off and on. They're holding up remarkably well. They're very strong folks, and I think they've done an amazing job at being spokespeople for his case. You know, stepping into the spotlight, not something they're accustomed to, or really, I don't think ever expected to have to do. So yeah, I think they're doing remarkably well. And on his humor, I think he is always been very adept at using humor to connect with people, to lighten the mood, to you know, just have a good time. He loves to have fun, and I think he I'm sure that is helpful and to his own sort of endurance through this through this detention. But I think it's also, you know, an incredible sort of gift and just gift to his family and to his friends, that he's able to joke around, and it's really remarkable. I find it incredible how he's able to just sort of project that that humor, and I don't know. It feels like sometimes he's comforting his friends and his family, even though obviously it's him that's going through this terrible situation. So yeah, I think his humor is an incredible gift, and I'm really in awe of it.
I think that comes across a lot, talking to his family, and they see that. And I know his sister Danielle has also been very vocal, obviously, in calling for his return. She's talked about sending him letters, and they trade celebrity gossip, and they share funny lines from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, which I think is one of their favorite shows. And I think they're incredibly proud of how he's holding up.
Yeah, it's really inspiring to hear as well. Again, as a journalist, it's a very hard position to be in, and not only are you, you know, physically kind of oppressed, but you're also, you know, vocally oppressed as well. And so, you know, as we keep talking about Evan, his case, Paul, what would you say other journalists or even our viewers can do to keep raising awareness and keep this conversation going?
Really, we appreciate people getting to know Evan, some thinking about him, talking about him, raising awareness. On WSJ.com, there's then this is outside of the paywall. If you just go to WSJ.com, you'll see banners for an Evan page. And if you click through there, you can read about his work. You can see interviews with his family. You can learn what the journal has been up to in trying to raise awareness. On social media, we're very grateful if people can repost or write about him with the hashtag #IStandWithEvan. And we also have had, given that we're obviously talking to a room full of journalists, write articles about him. I think the Princeton high school soccer team actually won the championship again this past summer.
That's right.
Which they sort of dedicated to Evan. So that was a wonderful moment. So finding ways to write about him and to bring his story kind of down to earth in our surroundings here, we're very grateful for. So really, whatever creative ways you can think of, and ultimately what we're trying to do is just make sure that he does not get forgotten or slip down the priority list, even though we won't solve this ourselves, and that's the US government's responsibility. We do think it'll be more difficult if he is not prominent and we're not reminding him every day that he needs to come home.
Yeah, absolutely. Mike, what would you say is just another great way to keep raising awareness about Paul and his situation?
Just to continue talking about him. I just echo what Paul says, that obviously this will ultimately be resolved through forces far over a lot of our heads, far over my head. But we can continue to talk about Evan and his case, and make sure that he's not forgotten. And then I will say that you can write to him. He, like I said, he craves connection, and he will be very interested, I think, to read letters from anyone. You'll be diverting him and giving him something interesting to think about. And so, I think reaching out to him is an incredible thing that we're able to do. Other than that, it's really just about amplifying his story.
Yeah, absolutely. That human connection, that's such a journalist trait that we all have as writers. And so I encourage everyone else to also do that, kind of just reach out as well. But thanks for that, for a little bit insight on him, who he is, and kind of where things are at now. I want to take some time now to pivot to any of the audience questions that we may have, or any questions that folks out there might have. Do we have any questions from the group? Let's see. For Mike, we do have one question for you. How's Evan's group of friends come together since he's been detained?
Yeah, in many ways, and that's been sort of a remarkable part of this. Well, Evan's always really brought his friends together. He's very gifted at creating communities, and whenever he would come back and visit New York, I would sort of get to see all different folks who I hadn't seen since the last time I saw Evan. And so, especially in the early days of his detention, when we didn't really have a lot of information, there was a lot of coming together to just commiserate and just be together and think about things that we could possibly do. And I think we've mentioned some of the efforts to continue to amplify his story. And there's a GoFundMe site and a website where you can learn more about him and send him letters, as I've alluded to before. and then we periodically come together to partner with the Journal and on press awareness events, and so yeah, I mean it's a testament to the kind of person he is and what he means to so many people that he is able to bring this really vast community of friends and people that care and love about him together to talk about his case and see what we can do to help out.
Yeah, absolutely. Love that he has a group of friends in his corner. He has so many people rallying for him too. I think that's really important here. We also have another question from the audience member Mark. This is for you, Paul. Did Tucker Carlson appeal for Evan's release when he met with Putin?
The topic certainly came up. I think you'd have to go back and watch it to answer that very specifically, but I think there was about 5 minutes at the end of the interview where Tucker Carlson talks about Evan and at one point said he's a 32-year-old kid. He's obviously not a spy. And Putin, again, if I remember correctly, that's when he responded that he was looking for some solution to this. It was quite a long answer, but that was the essence of it. And that was one of the two moments that Putin has spoken about him that time, and then in his annual press conference in December in response to a question then that was from the New York Times.
Yeah. And we have another question for you, Paul, just kind of on the same sentiments of his release. You mentioned that it was mainly government to government interaction that would solve this and get Evan home. But how do folks at the Journal raise awareness in spite of all of that?
Well, I think we're trying to raise awareness in any way we can. There's an awful lot that's going on really all the time, but specifically in preparation for the 1-year anniversary of this that will come on March 29th. So, the Journal has been doing as many public events as we can possibly cram in. The newsroom itself has responded admirably and has been doing runs for Evan. It has been doing readathons, 24-hour readathons to raise awareness. A lot of it has been just making sure that he is visible across all media and people are aware. And we think that gets noticed by the US government, and that's really to encourage or prod their efforts to bring this to a resolution.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there anything else or anywhere else that you folks will be speaking at, or we should turn our sights to as we keep the conversation going? Any events down the pipeline you'd like to mention to our viewers?
I am off to Youngstown, Ohio tomorrow to talk to the Youngstown Press Club, which invited me out to talk about Evan. We have done events up at Bowdoin, which was the college that he went to up in Maine. We did one in Bowdoin. Pretty soon afterwards, Colby asked to do one too. So I think there's the liberal arts colleges in Maine we've got covered. But no, there are. And please look out for 1-year events. Those and amplify them however you can. Would be very grateful.
Yeah, absolutely. Mike, I got another question for you. Just to learn a little bit more about Evan. You gave us so much insight about him, but what is one thing you would want to do with him once he's back home?
Just hang out and have dinner. He's incredible. Loves food. He's a great cook. Just have dinner, talk with him, get together with friends and maybe his family. We've all sort of gotten very close over the past year. So, just love to see him, give him a hug, and maybe after a week or so, go on a little bike ride down to Brighton Beach or something. Yeah, that's one of the things that I always associate with Evan is sort of exploratory bike rides. So be nice to do that again.
There's so much to do here. So many places to explore here in Jersey too, and I'm sure he'll love that. We have another question from the audience as well, from Debbie in the audience, who asked, "Will the sanctions being announced Friday make getting Evan released more difficult?"
I certainly hope not, but it's probably worth remembering Russia's been extremely heavily sanctioned, especially since the start of the Ukraine war and prior to that as well. So, one of the things that we've talked a lot about, and that Dow Jones, the parent company, the Journal, has spoken a bit about, is how do you deter behavior like this? One of the and is that actually a place where further sanctions should be considered by the American government? It's once a government takes a reporter hostage, it puts all the responsibility, obviously, on that reporter's home government to get them back. I think the bigger question for the US government down the line is going to be, how do you provide sufficient deterrence to stop that reporter being taken in the first place?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of precedent here too as well. I think that's very important to keep the conversation going. Great. I don't see any more questions from the audience, so I think that is our time, and that will wrap things up. Paul, Mike, thanks again for just giving us some more insight, not only on this case, but also getting us to know more a little bit about Evan and who he is as a person and a friend as well.
Thank
so
you,
that wraps
Jesse.
up our time. Yeah, thanks so much.
Thanks so much,
Again,
Jesse.
thank you for all for the time. Thank you all. And a special thank you to the Wall Street Journal and the New Jersey Society of Professional Journalists for hosting this event as well. Ken, not sure if you have any last remarks, but I turn it over to you if so.
To the Wall Street Journal and Dow Jones, who helped us put this event together. Please use the hashtag #IStandWithEvan whenever you mention him. And of course, WSJ.com/Evan for the latest on Evan's situation. It's almost a year, and let's not forget how unjust this detention is. Let's keep raising awareness. On behalf of the New Jersey Society of Professional Journalists, thank you for watching. Have a great day.